education, whether it's self-education, university education, or school education, or street education, for me, that helps eradicate the fear. Like, I fear not knowing, therefore I try and learn. But there are so many people that, just like you said, just try and fake it till they make it. The problem is in my industry specifically, you can cause a lot of fucking harm to people. So people need to stop doing that, and they need to be okay with saying, I don't know enough yet, give me more time. If you solely bought property, sold property, and kind of did that as your bread and butter, you could say that you're a property developer to a degree, or 100%. A property flipper, or whatever it may be. You know, you build a skill set there. An entrepreneur is somebody who has the capabilities to build and sell businesses repeatedly. Like, that's their skill set. So if you're a personal trainer who also sells t-shirts, and also, you know, sell something, that's not, you don't own multiple businesses, you own one, and it's your own brand. And then you would have other individuals on, you know, to the right of them that knew more, or at least perceivedly had a better knowledge base. They could do less harm. That's one massive tick in their direction of why you should choose them. But they just didn't get the genetically gifted yet, because the genetically gifted didn't look at them as an opportunity as a coach. But then as you sort of progress, and this is the sad reality, is I knew that when I competed, if I did well, which I knew I had the capabilities to do so, that would automatically take me from being like a potential coach of consideration to now one that would be considered more highly. Because there's this visual representation of my success, even though that is largely predicated on my genetics.
He has a stance. The how is different, and how you communicate is different. 10 years, a possible pest online with call-outs, and ask for people to state their claim. 10 years of hard work. Sometimes you've got to do it yourself. You've got to compete, win, to validate, and social proof. Look less at how many trophies and wins you see on an IG. Listen to more of what they say. He gets excited on work ethics when the approach may not be considered or environmentally ideal. He played soccer, triple jump record holder, 11.5 seconds, 100-meter sprint. He's elevated the symbol of love, and what with love is, with a symbol on his finger. A few tattoos under his belt, but can he tell me what color they are? Food is not just digested, but it's a symbolic print on your body. And what is the third tattoo? Please help me welcome co-founder Flex Success Coaching, a bachelor degree in science, coached and coaching the best in the game, lives in Spain. Does he like a good paella? Dean McKillop.
Man, I'm well. I like it.
Yeah,
I think that was pretty much nailed.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like I said, they're all short. I get it, but when we get into the conversation, we're going to open up about the 10 years of being a pest online and asking people, you know, state your claim. Who the fuck are you? And obviously, your 10 years of hard work. It's actually one of your first pin posts, and I was reading through it. Social proof of you competing. You know, trying to make it, and then at the end of the day, you know, you can look at people with trophies, but how about you look at what they say and do? And then there was a few podcasts you've done where you talk about you get excited when you see someone just fucking do the impossible with the impossible in some ways. You know what I'm trying to say? So yeah, I mean, everyone's going to understand. We're still kind of going into the warm up here, but let's firstly, how are you, mate?
Man, I'm very well. Like you said, I'm living in Spain, but only recently just back here. So,
okay.
And it's been a really nice return to Spain, man. I lived here for just under 3 months last year at a similar time to where we are now.
Yeah.
In a slightly different area of Valencia than what we are now. Now we're closer towards the beach, a beach called Cabanyal, or a suburb called Cabanyal, and I've come back and it's been even better than I remember, which is nice.
Wow.
So.
Why Spain?
Great people, good food, well priced, beautiful landscapes, and then also we bought property in Madrid recently from an investment perspective to obtain what they offer here, which is a golden visa, which will give us the freedom to travel Europe a little bit more freely. as opposed to being Australian at the moment. We travel pretty much on 3-month visas for the last 3 years. My wife and I have been traveling now technically for 3 years. So it's it's afforded us the opportunity to do that, and we really like it. Plus, we wanted to learn Spanish. What place other than Spain to learn Spanish? So,
mate, you've got light bulbs going off in my head, because first and foremost, one of my other pet loves is property investing. That's another pet love of mine. And when someone tells me about another country, before you know it, I'm on a plane and buying property there. So I actually haven't bought overseas since someone told me about New Zealand in Christchurch. And this was, if I said to you, I'm 55, I was 35 years old. I went over, no idea, jumped on a plane. I was reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad at the time. And he said you can make money from nothing. And I believed him, and I've been trying ever since. And it seems to work sometimes. So I'm not going to bring it up. We're not going to do an investment show now, which we could do an investment show. But I do want to hear about this Madrid thing. Have you run into Dorian Yates? He lives in Spain.
No, I think he lives in Marbella or Mallorca. I'm not sure. It's one of the two.
Okay.
If it's so he is somewhere in south, but he's a little bit more south than us. And I think he's a little bit more like beach town oriented. Valencia's like this hybrid between some city life, and then it's also got the beach on the outskirts of it. So no, I have not yet. Did run into him into a gym in America for the Olympia last year, but that was about it.
How was it? Let's go with that. How was it running into him?
I mean, I only saw him from a distance. I didn't really get the chance to speak to him. He was training legs. He looked just as intense, I suppose, then as probably not quite as much, but he was still training very intensely, put it that way, which was good to see.
Okay. And so while we're, like I said, off the script, tell me about some of maybe the people you have met in the industry, some of the greats, or some people you may have spoken to, and some people that we'll always go with the people that have surprised you. Like what have any bodybuilding greats that you've had a chat with, you've been surprised by?
I mean, I had the opportunity to go to a little mini seminar and have very small interactions with Phil Heath back in the day in Sydney when he was doing some traveling for Muscle Tech as an active pro. I found him really pleasant, very accommodating, and quite nice.
Oh, nice.
Despite the fact that people may suggest otherwise. I think they get caught up in the sort of social, like media-esque ego sort of type of thing. But he was super, super nice. I actually haven't been exposed to too many negatives, thankfully, man. Like I coach Kuba. He's quite a well-known pro now. He's a super likable guy. He's exactly as he is online, as he is on person. Super intense, but in the best possible way. So I haven't actually rubbed too many shoulders with too many pros. Actually, I mean, recently at Kuba's seminar that he had for his coaching group, I sat next to Ryan Terry, which was very cool to see somebody of that caliber actually be as humble as he is. Incredibly humble dude, which is awesome to see him also now validate his win with a second win this year at the Olympia. That to me, I think was really cool to see.
Since we're segueing perfectly, let's go with the Olympia. What do you think of the Olympia this year? And yeah, Ryan Terry, I mean, firstly, what was Ryan Terry when you saw his stature in real life, and obviously being, like you said, really nice, humble kind of guy? Could you, like, sometimes you can see people and you know why. You meet them and you go, yeah, I know why you're the winner. I know why you're number one. Like, it just, you can't see it on stage. Like, sometimes you can't see it because they're next to so many people and we're all looking and judging and going crazy. But then when you see them in real life, you go, oh, it makes sense. My God, look at you.
Yeah, I think with most men's physique guys, except for the really, really, really wide clavicle, like take up a lot of space kind of guys, they won't look as impressive in a t-shirt, even similarly to the classic guys. And I found this to be pretty common because they just don't take up as much space as what you would expect. And I think Ryan Terry was like 90 kilos per stage weight.
Really?
He's not a big guy.
That's nothing. Yeah, that's nothing.
And he's a relatively similar height to me. So I wouldn't say he took up a lot of space, but he obviously looked like he lifted. There's no doubt about that. Conversely, there are some people like, for example, Andrew Jacked in person walking around in a t-shirt or a tracksuit is an absolute alien.
Yeah.
Like takes up a ton of space. Hunter Labrada in person takes up a ton of space. So Ryan wasn't necessarily somebody who took up a lot of space, but you could tell he was athletically gifted.
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed, who is following us on all platforms, but especially here on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, please, if you could do us a big favor, which helps us reach more people, get better, bigger, greater. We've already had some great guests anyway. Everyone's been a treat. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you're notified every week a new podcast that is launched. And I just want to say a big thank you. But again, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and enjoy watching Muscle Talks podcasts.
So what did you think of Olympia this year? How did you find it? Like, I've really, obviously since 2019, but predominantly this podcast and after COVID is when I've reinvested in, because like I said, I've got Jay Cutler up on my vision board. And the reason I have Jay Cutler up there, I think what he achieved in relation to winning 2, losing 1, and coming back and winning the next 2 was quite an achievement of, instead of winning back to back, most people, when they've lost it, they don't come back ever again. Like you're kind of finished in a sense. And I've got C-Bum, which I didn't know C-Bum was going to go that far. I've had this vision board for a little while now. But what did you think? I mean, I felt like men's physique was a bit of, I felt like classic had a bit of a shift going on. I mean, C-Bum owned it, but there was a bit of a shift going on.
Yeah, it was one that I like to see, man. I've actually been a big fan of Mike Summerfield's physiques for quite some time. I think he's really, really, really good.
Yeah.
He's just never been super conditioned. But he's fantastic, man. I think the biggest problem with like a lot of people run up against C-Bum is he takes up a lot of space. Funnily enough, that conversation before, we're talking about not taking up much space.
Yes.
But he takes up a lot more space than a lot more of the competitors, which affords him the opportunity just to sort of dominate in size. But I'm glad that he's retired, in that I'd be interested to see how it shifts the landscape. I've always been a big fan of Urz's physique. I think it's likely been the most similar to C-Bum's from a stature perspective.
I've always liked
for quite some time.
I feel like Urz is each year getting better and better. I don't know. It just seems like a very good classic physique. Small waist, just good physique.
Yeah, well presented, good looking dude. That helps. He was always conditioned. The guy that I like the most at the moment, though, having seen him in Texas, I don't know how to pronounce his name, was a Brazilian fellow who actually came second to another Brazilian guy, Gabriel. He came second there, and then he won the Brazil show to qualify for the Olympia. He was absolute class. I'm really looking forward to see how he progresses over the next few years, because as far as I know, he's only done 3 pro shows now. The Texas was his first, the Brazil was his second, which he won, and now the third is the Olympia, which is a pretty cool achievement in of itself. So, but I like the classic, man. We'll see how it goes.
Don't you think as well? I was talking to Chris, who's the creative director here. We were kind of debating, there you are, 6, relatively looking healthy and young enough to do. I mean, we know it's not opens, but to do another 3, maybe win the record, like get past 8. But when you think of it in a business model, he's ready for business. So why would he want to risk his body any further? Like 6, and now the biggest follow in bodybuilding, the name everyone's talking about. So what I said with Chris, many people don't know Ronnie Coleman outside of bodybuilding. We know him, and some do. But everybody in and out of bodybuilding knows C-Bum. I mean, he's the most successful bodybuilder since Arnold. That's what I mean. He's Arnold and then a C-Bum, if you think about it. So there's no one else.
And I think like hanging up the trunks at this point in time is commendable, because Liz and I, we did a podcast not long ago on optimal quitting. Actually, it was like 3 years ago when I decided to say I was no longer going to compete in amateur bodybuilding. Yeah. And I think having the strength to quit optimally is super important. And a lot of bodybuilders actually need to consider this, because bodybuilding is one of those things that you can technically do for life. But the question you have to ask yourself is whether or not it is as fulfilling as it always has been, or if you're just doing it because you know no better, or because you have nothing else to lean back on, which is a scary thought for a lot of bodybuilders.
How scary
it attracts a lot of You know, it attracts a lot of isolated individuals who kind of seek bodybuilding because they're not really happy with a lot of other things. It can be quite toxic. So for someone like Chris, he doesn't need bodybuilding. He's probably not needed it for the last 3 years, 4 years.
100%.
You know, he could probably continue to win, but to quit now, he's remembered as a great. He continues to pursue the career that he wants to in business. I think it's a really, 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 really smart idea.
I think, like I said, I didn't imagine it. Like, I'll give you some examples. This is really, me and Chris were talking about. So when you think of basketball, you think of Michael Jordan, right? And there's a lot of great basketballers, but you think of Michael Jordan, right? When you think of golf, Tiger Woods. When you think of NFL, Tom Brady, kind of things. Even when you think of soccer, you think of Ronaldo over Messi. Messi, yes, best soccer player, but Ronaldo is Ronaldo. Like, just Ronaldo. Yep. People, another one, even David Beckham, he changed not just sport, he changed fashion, cars, tattoos, you name it. David Beckham made everyone rise into fashion of sport. Like, David Beckham got me to get tattoos. Not because I saw David Beckham doing it. I thought it was odd, a good-looking guy like him, such a professional soccer player, to do what he was doing. But then he set the bar on NBL, NFL, rugby league, you name it. Everyone was like becoming, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's certain greats, Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously bodybuilding, but then you got C-Bum. So I think he can build this legacy forever for the sport and be more than he is being on stage, off stage, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, he's probably one of the few that transcend the sport that they were known for.
Yeah.
Because C-Bum is probably known by more non-bodybuilding supporters than he is bodybuilders. And Beckham's probably just a similar. He was actually my football idol. Funnily enough, he brought him up. So, yeah. I mean, he's transcended all sports.
He's beyond the sport. He's like that's like that. You think like I watched his documentary on Netflix, and it was an amazing documentary. But the guy just stood out, not even knowing he was going to stand. He was just being himself, and it just the world embraced anything he did. And it just flowed onto people. He was just this person that, I don't know, he just changed everything.
You know what? He actually has some similarities to C-Bum. Like back in the day, he was too pretty for most of what the sport in the UK would have supported for, right?
Yes,
like,
100%.
He had the hair.
Yeah.
He did all of the tattoos. He wore the sarongs. Like, he was before his time. But for some reason, it was accepted.
Yeah.
C-Bum is an individual who's had a lisp, and at school you would have been teased for that, but somehow it's become a strength of his.
Yeah.
So they have a relative similarity there, I guess you could say.
He's a little bit soft-spoken, vulnerable. I mean, you wouldn't think he'd train barefoot. He trains barefoot. He's there with his Camaro, whatever it is. I mean, I know it's sometimes staged, but they know they're there. I mean, he's not going to work hard. So, I mean, Gymshark's move and everything else he's doing. I mean, yeah, the guy. Yeah, I mean, like you said, and that's what I wasn't trying to, like, Ronnie Coleman is the best of all, but he's the best of all of us knowing bodybuilding. But if I said to a friend, like if I said to my daughter, you know Ronnie Coleman, she'd go, who's Ronnie Coleman? But if I said to my daughter, you know C-Bum, she goes, yeah, I know C-Bum. I mean, C-Bum's as famous as Andrew Tate and the rest of them in this world at the moment. So in other words, he's done an amazing job for the sport. What about the Opens? What do you think about Samson? I think it was a great win.
Yeah, man, I'm happy for it to go that way. I think I've seen Samson in person in an off season. I've not seen him in person in his competitive condition just yet, but I think it's a pertinent reminder for a lot of people to remember that, you know, what you see on a live stream is not 3D. It is not what it looks like in person. And even as a person who coaches online and assesses physiques in 2D format and I think they have a pretty good eye for it and is maybe even judgmental of Samson's condition in the past. Not even maybe, certainly has been. I'm always reminded every time I go to a pro show just how different it is. So I think people need to like pull back their opinions on that a lot, especially with someone like Samson, because it looks very, very different in person. You know, and the people that I trust that were there in person said he was just absolutely wild.
Well, again, I feel, because I've been listening the last few years and watching and learning, and I'm asking you as the professional you are in the sport and the coach that you are, I feel what Samson showed, this is what I feel, is he didn't win it from the front and he didn't win it from the rear. He won it everywhere. What I mean is it was the body that was so complete that it wasn't about the best from the back and the best from the front. He was all round the best, like meaning it just flowed. It was a beautiful physique. It wasn't just because his back was incredible, but so was his front. It all just balanced to me, feeling like that was a winning body overall. What do you think on that?
Yeah, no, I would agree, man. For me, bodybuilding is about minimizing the flaws as opposed to highlighting the strengths, or eradicating the weaknesses. And I mean, Hardy actually doesn't really have any weaknesses other than shape compared to Samson. And Samson obviously has a tremendous amount of size and stature. But if you like assess Derek's physique, he actually has some poses that are like heavily flawed. I'm really surprised that somebody of his stature, who has had as long as he has to have refined his physique to come into this show, to have such a bad ab and thigh still, like an inability to hit it. To me, that was homework not completed. And then when you have a pose like that stands out so drastically, as hard as it is to say, hey, that's only one pose out of however many, we are humans and humans have biases. And if you see something that is significantly problematic, it sticks to you. And then you judge the next one, more harshly. And then you judge the next one more harshly. To pull a thread on, you said before you bring up Andrew Tate, I personally think he's a moron.
Yeah.
So if he was to say something that was actually true, I'm probably going to judge it more harshly, even though it may be the same thing that, say, David Beckham says, because I like David Beckham.
Yeah, of course.
And I think this happens on stage a lot. I think it happens on stage a lot. So he left the door open there. I don't like the concept of like you have to be like, the champion has to be significantly beaten. I think you should just be beaten on the day.
Yeah,
I don't like the comparison discussion in bodybuilding, like where they say, oh, he was better than last week, therefore he gets more marks. And no, it matters how he stands on stage today. And I think your comments are correct. Samson was more than likely the most complete when you consider what is bodybuilding. It's muscularity, it's condition, and it's symmetry. And it's also presentation, which is incredibly important.
It just reminded me of what bodybuilding was about. Like he got close, I think, last year as well. I don't think he wasn't far off last year, but this year, I think everyone said not just bodybuilding's back. It's not just one on the back, and it's not one. It was just a complete, the quads, the calves, the hammies, the glutes, the back, the size, the chest, the abs, the whole lot. The whole thing was a beautiful physique. It was worth being the number one guy. So it was, for me, it was great to watch.
Hey, I'm Jamie from Pawtion.
And I'm Steve, Muscle Talks Podcast.
And we heard that you guys are very into clean eating for yourselves, so we figured we'd educate you a bit about clean eating for your dogs. That's why Pawtion has decided to partner with Muscle Talks and give you promo code MuscleTalks25 for 25% off your first order at pawtion.com.au. That's pawtion.com.au.
And if you continue ordering through Pawtion, please use Muscle Talks 10, and that gets you, with continued orders, 10% off. We're quite excited to be part of Pawtion. I've got a few dogs running around us just as I talk now. So please support not only good eating for ourselves, but I'm sure you want to promote good eating for your loved one, your pet, your dog. So go to pawtion.com.au and use, for your first order, Muscle Talks 25 to get 25% off your first order, and then continued orders, Muscle Talks 10.
We'll talk about bodybuilders that we've spoken to or that we've had moments with. Funny enough, I'm talking to Sean Ray at the moment.
Yeah.
And he is a cool guy. He's a very nice guy, man. I mean, when I say I never thought he wasn't a nice guy, but once I reached out to him to come on my podcast, right? I even reached out to Milosh. And Milosh was kind enough to SMS me back and say, I can't. He said, no, I can't. And he said, contractually, he can't come on. And I was like, totally get it, man. So I said, thanks for just messaging me. And he even replied back, hey, no problem, maybe one day. So I thought that was cool. And then I reached out to Sean Ray, and he mentioned that he'd like to come to Australia one time. So we were talking about that. But I've spoken to him over the phone, and his daughter is a singer, and she sounds a bit like Destiny's Child. She's kind of got that kind of... And she came to Australia only 5 weeks ago. And he rang me, he messaged me. He goes, hey, bro, do you know any record producers, anyone that maybe, you know, my daughter can talk to while they're in Australia? And funny enough, I got a guy across the road that can. And I just said, oh, look, I'll put you in contact with this guy across the road. I don't think anything eventuated from it. But I said, yeah, if your daughter's stuck and your wife, they need help, I'll tell them I'll look after them. And he was like, oh, I really appreciate it. I've passed on your number. So there you go, mate. I'm talking to Sean Ray.
Nice. Just got to get him on the pod now and see what he has to say for himself.
You never know. You never know. We may even get him on. So, but you know, everything slowly and surely one day. But let's go with one of the things that I've written here on the script. There's something about your stance. You have a stance, bro. All right? Mm-hmm. And your stance, the photo that I'll illustrate it to everyone, that you got your legs quite apart, and you're checking an athlete at the time. I'm not sure if it's a show, whatever it is. She's wearing her bikini. And you said, I do it when I'm assessing a physique in person. I do it when I'm talking to someone face to face. I do it when I'm standing and thinking. Why? I don't know. But if I'm in that stance, you can assume I'm present. When I'm in that stance, I'm comfortable, and therefore I am focused. The stance. Can you tell us about the stance, mate?
Yeah, I said in that post, it was highlighted to me by an old client of mine, Jess Zukovsky.
Yep.
Who's a powerlifter out of Australia. She's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I was stood like that at the Arnold's talking to her, and she's maybe 5'1". So she thought I was doing it just to get down to her height. And then I just became kind of more and more consciously aware of the fact that I did it a lot whenever I was thinking, having a deeper conversation, assessing a physique. I don't know what it is. It's a comfort. I think it allows me to stand in it for a long period of time.
Yeah, it looks.
Funnily enough, Callum Rystrick from Pro Coach, he actually messaged me a picture of himself and just said "Team Low Stand."
Team Low Stand. So you can actually do a T-shirt. You can actually do a T-shirt now, bro.
I might have to. So yeah, it's just a comfortable stance to like really gather my thoughts.
Well, we've got the Michael Jordan, the jump with the basketball on the caps. We just have caps with you doing the stance, man. I think they call it flex success. I mean, wow, there you go. There's a marketing campaign for you, bro.
It's the low level leg spread stance. That's what it is.
It's like I said. I mean, I had to announce it. It's up there in your socials. All right. Session C nationals done. It's going to be a long question, so just bear with me for a second. Firstly, how did you go? How did you find the caliber and the investment from these athletes, this comp, to be like? Seeing this in your most recent comp, how did you find? You mentioned a lot of the boys and how they went, and my question is, what did you find taking the boys into this most recent comp? That's what I want to say. This is your most recent, taking these boys in. What were the challenges for you? Questions about, like, what did you find that you needed to sharpen your skill with, or what did you feel like you had that you brought? Like, what did you feel your last comp? What did you walk away with thinking yourself?
Well, I mean, the significant difference this last competitive season compared to the previous was the fact that I was actually there for the nationals. That was a significant shift in difference, I suppose, for my athletes, in that I wasn't just a bobblehead talking on a screen anymore, but rather I was actually there in person.
Yep.
Well, one thing that I pride myself on as a coach in the online space, especially on competitive days, is having the capabilities to give my clients clarity around the expectation of timing, so that they're not sat out the back like anxious, worrisome messes, which is what a lot of bodybuilders become on show day. Because it's very there's an uncertainty to a show day because you don't really know what time you're going on. So usually I'm sat there with my computer and my timeline, and I have a calculator that determines how long each sort of class will take. And I've got a WhatsApp message going on being, sub 90 minutes, sub 60 minutes, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So that was different in that I was there in person. I still did a relatively similar thing in regards to like timing a WhatsApp message and using my calculator and all the rest of it. But the difference was is instead of there being like a text there and a voice note, it was I pride myself on having a calming nature over my guys' capabilities just to sort of relax into the show. I mean, I was lucky in that I didn't actually really have any challenges this year that I found particularly difficult. I think everybody performed really well. I think everybody performed beyond expectations. There was progress everywhere. There was a couple like really good wins. It was a great season. It was. I have to honestly commend IFBB this year again on their on their judging at the nationals especially. It was the most agreeable set of first, second, and thirds that I've probably ever witnessed and experienced there. I mean, it didn't feel rushed either, which was really good. Everyone got their chance to be compared. So bravo to them.
Yeah, I think I've not really met Tony. I mean, we were going to go down to Melbourne and get him on the podcast. We couldn't get down to Melbourne. I think like I said, I'm going to work to have him on. We've got plenty of bodybuilders, but also to get Tony on. But I do see his complete investment and conviction in the sport. Like, there's a guy that loves it, and he can get, and you saw just now when he was overseas with NPC TV, whatever they call it, and he's talking to everyone. He's there with C-Bum. I mean, the guy, if anyone's good, deserves to run a show. I mean, he's mates with everyone, and he has this love affair for the sport. And it's not a competition between him and the competitors. He just wants to be the best show in Australia, and that's his competition. So I think he's doing a great job.
Tony's a savage, man.
Yeah. So like I said to you, I would like to get him on to actually, I would like to do a big history lesson with him. I'd like to really go back and talk about his competing days, but also all the athletes he knows and how just each decade has gone with him, and that love affair and the investment in the sport. And also there was that time with the Arnolds, which cost him a lot of money, but mate, the guy's got the microphone and he's smiling. So not many people can do that either. So, well done to him. A recent post, actually, I think you were on your podcast with one of your other business associates, and you guys spoke about what separates us from great coaches to the potentially being a great coach. Yes, I'll say that again. What separates us from great coaches to potentially great coaches is the ability to manage the person, because the X and the O's aren't much different, but how do you get that person to apply their intended methodology? It's all the same. It's calories and deficits and you name it. But what you said is the how is different, and how you communicate is different, as you heard in my intro. Trying to understand each individual, and you can speak to them most appropriately. I think I also heard I can't remember what your partner's name is, but he spoke about energy as well. I think he mentioned the word energy in it, but he was very faint. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was with our coach George.
George,
He's a coach of ours who actually lives in the UK.
Yes.
And we're discussing things that we've sort of either solidified, I suppose, in our knowledge as coaches, or things that we learned in this particular season that we think will take forward with us. And both of us agreed that it was more like a recognition of how important it is to understand that each individual that you coach requires, but will potentially requires, a different, communication style. Some people are really good at just being told what to do, and they do it. They uphold the expectations of the coach. Some people, require a little bit more of a why behind the reason. So there's some education that needs to be given proactively there in order for them to validate or feel like what you're saying is true. There are other individuals, and these are maybe the worst kind of individuals to coach because they're very difficult, that are rebellious. and they really don't want to be told what to do. So now it's actually about like massaging them into a position where they feel like they've made the choice.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting one. But the point being is that at the end of the day, as a coach, you still need to utilize the same relative tools to get somebody lean. They're going to have to eat less food. They're likely going to have to do some more output at some point. And then you're going to have to try and find strategies to mitigate if they feel like they're going to break at some point. You can't just say to everybody, like, here's the brush that we paint with, you know. I give everybody a low carbohydrate, high protein diet. They all do cardio. They all do faster cardio. They all train fight. Nah, man, like it's all one and the same, but the little bits and pieces that you dial up and dial down need to be individually specific. And knowing how to communicate is super important because, you know, there are clients that will respond very well to me just saying, this isn't good enough. This is what you need to do better. You know, and then there are other clients where it needs to be like, I'm not happy with how that has gone about, but how do you think that we can collectively come together to make this better? Like, what are some of the solutions that you think will work for you? They're both going to get a modification. The difference is, you know, how do we get there?
Yeah, I think I even commented on that to say it's kind of even in your everyday life, dealing with people, it's no different to you being a coach, but actually relationships, family members, friends. My two kids. I got a daughter and a son, different ages. I mean, you can't paint them with one brush. Like you're actually assessing, anyway, it's your kids. But I was just thinking, I had a juice and salad bar when I was 30. So I'm 55, I was 30. And it was the same year 2000, when Boost Juice started as well. And I'll just tell you, I was a network engineer. I worked for HSBC, right? That's what I was. And I started from the mailroom in the Commonwealth Bank. So I was a mailroom kid thinking, going to the city. My dad told me, if I've got a briefcase and a tie on, you've made it, with a salami sandwich. Mind you, I wasn't really having salami sandwiches. I was, even at that age, going down to the Chinese shop and I was asking for boiled rice. The lady knew me. I was getting boiled rice and I was buying fucking John West tuna in olive oil, but the rectangle tin. Remember the rectangle tins? They used to be...
It's the one food that I don't eat, man, is tin tuna. It's the one food that I've never gotten into.
Well, anyway, at least we know that now. But having said that, it's not about the tuna tin, by the way. But anyway, I thought it was a great story. But sorry that we didn't entertain you, buddy. But I just play with you. So with my shop, I had 8 staff. And to be honest, that was the hardest job. That was my hardest job. And the reason it was my hardest job was I knew sometimes my chef or cook didn't want to fucking hear my tips. It depends who I hired at the time, who left. So I used to go in there and tell them, listen, I used to give them, I used to say to them, do you think Ian Thorpe needs a coach? Ian Thorpe's the best swimmer in the world, but he fucking has a coach. I said, do you think like Ronaldo needs a coach? He's the best soccer player. I said, you are the best here. I'm just going to refine you to be better. And that's when they used to look at me and say, okay, you're the coach. Like, it's kind of like I was just emphasizing, I'm the coach. I'm making you produce the best produce. I'm going to bring you the best produce. I'm going to tell you what to do with the best produce. And I know your skills will cut it, serve it, do it right. But I might push you a little bit, which when you say, where do you push them? Where I say, I need that done in 20 minutes. So it's like that kind of stuff, or I need it out in 15 minutes because we sold out. I need another one done. So I think we just got to realize, not that I'm a coach, but that I've had, staff that, well, firstly, we can't do without them. And secondly, they've got such different personalities. But most importantly, if we realize, well, they're our star athlete, I'll treat you like a star athlete. I'm your coach, but I'm going to get the best out of you. I don't know. What do you think about that analogy?
It's true, man. If specific to the industry that I'm in, like if you look at the coaches that have been the most successful over the years, I think it's actually, and repeatedly the most successful, the ones that get the most notoriety, most of them are better communicators than they are necessarily like anything else.
That's right.
And like when you listen to like, CBum talk about like someone like Hani Rambod.
Yeah.
Most of the conversation isn't about the X's and O's. It's more about how he manages them as a person. Matt Jansen has been very similar, and he's even communicated that too. Like most of the education he sought was from other coaches on how to be a better coach, not necessarily to how to understand nutrition better or pharmacology better. It was how to manage the athlete. And most of these guys, and they're coming out of it, that's the things that I hear from those is, he actually, one of them might be, he actually cares, or I can lean on for this, or what he says this, I believe it to be true because there's a huge amount of respect and trust there. For the guys that seemingly just follow like a set of protocols without too much deviation to their approach, they do very well with the genetically gifted, but they do less well with more individuals than probably what people recognize. I actually think there's a whole host of coaches like that in the pro division. They have one or two guys that they've done very well with for many years, but if you looked at their actual like coaching cohort of athletes, they've probably got a worse hit rate than they do a success. They've got a better miss rate than they do a hit rate. It's just that the hits that they have got are on big name people that aren't that hard to manage. That's the reality of it.
And we're going to mention later on that you actually, I think you were strength and conditioning coach for the Brisbane Broncos. Is that true?
I had to do 400 hours worth of prac to finish my exercise science degree, and that's where I did my prac.
Yeah.
So as an undergrad, I wasn't an S&C coach there. And then I did some assistance S&C stuff there for a little bit longer beyond that. But yeah, so not an actual official coach there, but I worked under them, yes.
Well, then I guess you got to see a little bit on their protocols. But it's funny because when I hear about Wayne Bennett, constantly every player, but you're wondering, like you said, Hani, was it Hani? I can't say the surname.
Rambod, yeah.
Rambod. Yeah. Similar to Wayne Bennett. You're wondering what is, they keep saying he's a great listener, Wayne Bennett. And it's funny because even when Latrell Mitchell, who's a bit AWOL at the moment, whatever, he doesn't want to talk to him about rugby league. He just wants to clear his head so he can go do what he does best. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to tell you how to play rugby league, Latrell. I just got to get your head back in the game so you can do what you do best. So and that's what I think a good coach does. I mean, they just know their athlete and they know, I guess they slot in and which you probably do as well, I'm assuming. You can correct me if I'm wrong, after 10 years and doing what you're doing. And if that, sometimes what your athlete needs is not necessarily what you thought initially, also what is necessary to get them to win a comp. Sometimes it could be mind games and you're just there you already know they're doing the physical. Like you're saying, man, fuck, you don't even need me for the physical, but God, do you need me to get you there? Because your mind needs help. Like we need to, condition you mentally. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, for sure, to varying degrees. Sometimes there's people that I can just give the X's and O's to, and they'll do that for 12 months straight, and I don't really hear a peep out of them. There's other people where, there's a lot of conversation back and forth about trying to figure them out so that I can get the most out of them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So the 23rd of October, a post, you got 4 athletes up there, and you got 2 pro cards. Matt O'Reilly is up on there. You know what I mean? And you've and you've written a few things. It was a lengthy read, but you said what you see here is nearing 10 years of coaching. 10 years ago, I was a pest online, calling out bullshit, asking people to validate their claims, question their methods. You had no skin in the game, a few people that valued what you had to say and do. So you prepped yourself for a comp, and you did that to show or validate and show proof of who you were as a coach. So tell me about that comp that you did.
Yeah, so I think it was 2018. It was my second season.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess it was an opportunity for proof of concept.
Yeah.
The concept was that I knew what I was at least talking about to a degree to get myself into pretty significant condition.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just wanted to sort of, I suppose, put my money where my mouth was and validate my thoughts into application. So, I was lucky at that stage to come away with the Queensland under-90s win.
Wow.
And then I lost to Ariel at the Nationals, which was, a great person to lose to be perfectly honest, because he's a phenomenal human. And as a person who's only ever played sport prior to that, that's objectively measured in its success with goals, numbers, you either win or you lose objectively. There's no other way about it. It's a really weird, let's just call it a sport for ease of conversation, a really weird sport, bodybuilding, in that losing is a bit different, because it's a subjective decision based upon a collection of judges that have decided whether or not they think you're better or worse than the person next to you. And no one can really say it's true or not. They can just say it's most likely the case because this is what the majority believe in, so. But that was that season. It was, but that picture itself, I suppose, was more so to articulate that most people see gold medals as a reason to go to a coach, as if the gold medal that is the success. But rather, the gold medal is just a representation, at least in this particular post that I was talking about, of the many years of work done prior to that to ensure that I had the skill set to do what I do now. But like the knowledge existed there. It's just what has changed over time is the refinement of the knowledge into application. And then also the opportunity to work with better and better athletes. Yeah. So one of the problems we face, I think, as coaches is that we can receive clients to our own bias to the point where it becomes easier and easier to actually get a result in regards to first, second, and thirds, because you get more genetically gifted individuals over time. And then as you allow that, as you allow that to happen, you actually become less skillful because you just have the same person repeated, whereas individuals that are trying to make their way, they usually have to deal with lots of different people. They have to come up with they have to solve lots more problems. And then they become better and better, but they may not have got the validation yet because maybe the individual that they've actually helped progress significantly hasn't had the genetic potential to win in bodybuilding. So they get no validation of their actual knowledge and their success, at least on stage. They only know what they've achieved themselves. And I think those coaches sometimes get left by the wayside because people just want to go to the glittery, shiny shit. But you should step away sometimes from the shiny shit and go, cool, they've got people that win. But like, what do they actually say? How do they communicate? What do they know? Can they problem solve? Those are the things that are important to me. Like when I chose a coach to take on my last season, it was important to me that I respected their knowledge and I trusted their capabilities. I didn't really care if they'd actually had much success on stage yet, because I knew that with application would come success, and that success on the stage of a bodybuilding stage is not necessarily first, second, or third. As much as you want it to be, it's not always the case. So that was sort of
tell me more on that.
Well, the point is so let's just say somebody could have came to me 5 years ago and I could have had no success on the stage in regards to medals.
Yep.
But I may have been a far better choice than somebody had, because that person had just had better clients.
Right.
But they may have actually. So in that instance, like if the person had spoken to me, and I was lucky enough to sort of come up in this industry at a time where social proof wasn't as necessary as what it is now. The Instagram game wasn't as necessary as what it is now. I built my career off communication of knowledge, and then application over time, and then word of mouth. Like now it's a little bit more like shiny bells and whistles and all this kind of stuff. But the knowledge that I had then was sufficient enough for me to do a better job as a coach than people that were already beating or that were already winning with clients that were just repeating the same shit that they learned 10 years ago. They actually hadn't progressed their knowledge any further. They were just running the repetition of the same process. It was, low carb dieting, lots of fucking output and a ton of drugs.
Yep.
And then make someone work hard enough, they're going to get lean. They're going to get on stage. If they're genetically gifted, they're going to win. And then you would have other individuals on, to the right of them that knew more, or at least perceivedly had a better knowledge base. They could do less harm. That's one massive tick in their direction of why you should choose them. But they just didn't get the genetically gifted yet, because the genetically gifted didn't look at them as an opportunity as a coach. But then as you sort of progress, and this is the sad reality, is I knew that when I competed, if I did well, which I knew I had the capabilities to do so, that would automatically take me from being like a potential coach of consideration to now one that would be considered more highly.
Yeah.
Because there's this visual representation of my success, even though that is largely predicated on my genetics, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, my ability to work hard and diet through difficulty and all this kind of shit. But like, you win on a bodybuilding stage because of your genetic predisposition and how far that has now been matured, not necessarily because you've followed the best protocol.
Yeah.
So I think people with better knowledge bases have the ability to take the principles of fat loss and the principles of bodybuilding and manipulate them in a way that has a protocol that is specific to each individual, and the percentage of success for them is largely greater. It's just not as visually represented in their initial point of their career. And then as their career starts to, you know, accumulate more and more wins, all of a sudden people are like, oh, now they're a good coach. Well, no, they've been a good coach for 10 years. You've only just noticed them now because you look for the shiny shit.
Well, you've written here, look less at how many trophies and wins you see someone's IG bio and listen to what they say. What are you seeing? Again, I'm just watching. Look, I did do a PT. I do PT. I studied it, early 20s. I can't remember what it was, St. Leonard's. It was AIF or FII. I didn't do it because I was a network engineer. I was enjoying my job and I was enjoying the gym, and I really didn't need. I just did it because it was a 4-day course, 5-day course for $500, and I enjoyed it. And I did help a few people out, and I did do it for a short time. But again, I really looked at it a little bit differently at the time. But it just seems like the bodybuilding game is not only getting bigger, better, shinier, better. It's becoming entertaining, the posing. But it just seems like everybody is now fighting for the next thing, which is to have their own athletes go on stage. It just seems like it's like, look at C-Bum, but look at everybody. Name one Olympian that's a coach, in a sense, besides Milosh and a few others. Jay Cutler is a businessman. C-Bum is a businessman. What I'm getting at is they just wanted to be great athletes and build that, I guess, mantle of being the greatest athlete. And I guess the opportunities came thick and fast, sponsorships, business opportunities, and they're running with it. Do you think some people are losing track on not only being an athlete, but now they're diversing and losing focus by trying to now also be a coach as well while they're competing? What do you think about that? Because I'm seeing like so many posing coaches now, and also everyone that's done a comp now is training some junior from the gym to compete. It just seems like there's a lot of noise going on in that area. Not that I care about it, but I'm noticing it more and more. You?
Yeah, I mean, the online space has afforded people the opportunity to potentially coach more individuals. That comes with it an inherent risk that there's a low barrier to entry there. And also you can make your coaching skill set look shinier than what it is deep in regards to your actual capabilities. Because, you know, it's like the photoshopping of coaching. I think like in the instance of like people like a C-Bum who doesn't coach, or people like a Jay Cutler who doesn't coach, I would expect that your energy will more than likely go where you think that you'll get the greatest result.
Okay.
So like, you know, I started getting into bodybuilding at the age of 25. I think I competed for the first time at like 27 or 28, then about 32, and then about 33 or 13, 34. And even if I thought I had the genetic capabilities to do a lot better, which I think I did, the recognition was that I was also like a really good coach, and I could foresee into the future that the one that would give me the greatest amount of satisfaction, both short term and long term, wasn't competing, but rather helping and coaching other individuals.
Coaching.
My energy directed away from my own personal preferences of wanting to be a competitive bodybuilder and into my personal preferences of wanting to be a really good fucking coach. And like if I was of somebody of the caliber of, say, CBum, I imagine it would have diverted in the other direction.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like, if the stage and competing is you want to exhaust that, as CBum did, that's what he's going to exhaust. And you knew coaching people, helping people reach that excellence was for you to step away from the stage, in a sense, and pursue that love and passion for the sport, was to get those people to reach those great. And I think some people, that gets a bit skewered sometimes. That's what I feel.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people fall into doing things without actually having any kind of fucking retrospection or even foresight into like what it is they're trying to achieve with their shit. Like most people just fall into bodybuilding and they don't really know, and then they just continue doing it. You know, there's probably a lot to be said about the mental health of the people that do gravitate towards bodybuilding too, because it can be quite an isolated thing, and it can be quite toxic in that nature, in that, you know, people are seeking something and they use bodybuilding as an opportunity just to sort of continue doing what they're already doing, which is maybe not the greatest set of behaviors. But there certainly is too many, or there certainly are at least too many people who have not considered the potential like detriment to the individuals that they're helping, because they're too egotistical to realize they don't have the skill set yet. So like, for example, you mentioned before that you got a PT qualification within 5 weeks or whatever it was, because like
5 days.
5 days. So like, why not? And that's the problem. Like they do offer it for that 5 days.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, like back in the day, I couldn't even become legally a personal trainer after 2 years of my exercise science degree, because I hadn't finished it yet, because it had lost the connection with that particular company that you had to pay your fees to in Australia. I don't remember the name either, but so like I could either, and they even said to me on the phone, look, if you want to get insurance as a personal trainer, or you should just go do this course for 5 days. And I'm like, but I've done a university degree for 2 years. I know far more than they do for 5 days. And there's more individuals out there with 5 day certificates than there are with 5-year degrees. And I think that is super, super problematic in a space where we're dealing not only with physical health, but we're dealing with a lot of mental health potentially as well. And even knowing when to say, hey, this is way outside my scope, and referring onwards.
I mean, that 5-day course, I think now is a 12-week course. 5 days, 12 weeks. Like back then it was, I said to you, I was in my 20s. That's 30 years ago. But this is just me. Though I loved the sport, I still knew there were others that were more invested than I was, and I just made room for them. I was not interested in, like, was I muscular? Yes. Was I ripped? Yes. But I didn't have the confidence for stage, so I didn't want it, because I knew they had the confidence for stage. And did I see it as a career move? Well, I was happy with my career. So I kind of got it because I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to I did the course and I thought about it. But when I got the certificate, I still knew that there were better trainers. There was just people completely invested, and I actually felt like I was a charlatan. That's how I felt, because I wasn't invested. I was a network engineer. I was happy with my money, but I love bodybuilding, but I wasn't looking for short change in training. Like I might have done some people that just entry-level stuff, family, friends, and girls I wanted to meet, maybe, you know, like, I don't know, like I met them at Bondi and they were telling me I was personal trainer, would I train them? Not that I'm now going to sound like I was picking up girls with it. I wasn't. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know. I still till today look around the sport and I kind of know who's who just from far. And even I just know, leave it to those that know what they're doing. I just know it. This sport is more healthier with those that know what they're doing. That's how I feel. It's like business. Like, don't fucking do this business. It's not for you. Or you're not an entrepreneur, mate. Entrepreneur to me, I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have a private jet yet. I do not have a yacht. I do not write entrepreneur until you see me boarding a private jet that I own. Will I call myself? I'm a businessman. I'll call myself every day of the week businessman. But I'm far from your mentor and I'm far from your entrepreneur. I'm just trying to make it. But that's my goal. My goal is maybe I want the title of entrepreneur, but I look at Richard Branson, I look at Trump's, I look at, some of the guys that are out there they're not coaches, meaning mentor coaches. They're just businessmen that are successful. People want to know their story. I think that's what I'd like to be. But to write down, excuse me for saying this too, but I'm not going to write, I'm a personal trainer and an Uber driver and I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I might not write, I drive Uber, but I'm not going to write, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, fuck, I'm just trying to make it. And like I said, I've owned a few properties in my time and I still did not think for a second I could ever call myself that word. So like I said, I kind of know, even when I did the course, I just looked around me. I just looked at some physiques and some trainers and the dedication and busting their bodies and busting people up. That I just go, these guys know what they're doing. I mean, I'm not going to enter that field. Like, I think, and that's what it is. I don't think people realize, like, to make it in any, actually not even bodybuilding, but to make it in business is if you can handle adversity and you're a problem solver and you're never comfortable. Because if you're looking for comfort, go get a job. That's basically, you know what I mean?
Well, this is the thing, the problem solver aspect is what is, I think, again, and one of the key factors that separates average coaches who probably don't really ever get that much better to those that are actually really, really fucking good.
Yeah.
Because your ability to problem solve comes from experience. So there's an element of this that over time, if you are exposed to more and more individuals, more and more problems, you're a critical thinker, you self-educate, then you're going to become a good coach. I'm not saying that you have to have a university degree in order to be a good coach, but that university degree certainly sets you up with a less likelihood of causing damage, and it sets you up with a knowledge base in this particular instance, whereby you have the at least the capabilities to maybe problem solve faster. And this industry is set up in a manner that is, or the personal training industry, I should say, with those courses that are very short, it's set up in a manner to just create more and more people that suffer from like the Dunning-Kruger effect, if you're familiar with that.
What's that? What's
this perception?
What is that?
Where you have a small amount of knowledge on something, but you perceivably think you have a lot more, and therefore you think you're a lot better than what you really are. And I would liken, like, your comment before about like the 12-week course to me learning Spanish. In that, in the first 4 to 6 weeks when I started to learn the basics of Spanish, I thought, this actually isn't too bad. It's pretty easy. I think I'm going to do all right at this. And then if I'd have just sat in that space, I would have thought I was really good. But then as I tried to learn more, I figured out, oh shit, I know very little. And then I tried to learn more and I was like, oh, this is even way more difficult than I expected. So like the more you're willing to try and then learn more, the more you find out you actually know a lot less. And then you become really self-critical of your capabilities. So you pull back and you say, like, someone says to me, do you speak Spanish? The answer is no. But maybe it's the same as, like, do you coach people? Yes. Well, hang on a fucking minute. Like, you've been doing this for 4 weeks, mate. Like, so this industry is rife with that.
You said something I want to add to this. I've never thought about this. So I said to you, I was a network engineer for HSBC. I started from the Murray. Dean, I was hopeless at studying, honestly. I had to try very hard. I was a daydreamer. That's why I'm in business, because I get to daydream. I just get to fucking do shit. That's all I do, right? And I get to understand the science behind things like coffee and a few things, right? But it's funny, when I sat in the office with the other engineers, every single one of them that fucking went to uni, I was nowhere near them. They were above me. I could tell. I was actually fucking faking it till I make it. Like, they were just at a different caliber of having that university engineering certification, the time spent studying. I was learning how to problem solve along the way, but they had done some of the studies to learn contingencies and do this. So what I'm getting is, it just, what you just said just made fucking so much sense, because you, like you said, you did university, you did what you did, and that caliber of experience and skill and discipline, and just to understand and study. Like I said, I sat in the room with another 6 engineers and I was intimidated by them. I just never told them. And when you said that now, I said, fuck, I felt like I was never going to be better than them or be as good as them, because I came from the streets. But I'm not saying the grit didn't work, but many people don't understand that. You know what I mean? They don't understand that.
Yeah. Education, whether it's self-education, university education, or school education, or street education, for me, that helps eradicate the fear. So like, I fear not knowing, therefore I try and learn. But there are so many people that, just like you said, just try and fake it till they make it. The problem is in my industry specifically, you can cause a lot of fucking harm to people. So people need to stop doing that, and they need to be okay with saying, I don't know enough yet. Give me more time.
And I think if you've got a 5-year university degree, 3-year university degree, I'll just tell you, it's a 3-year degree on the street. It's a 5-year degree on the street. They're doing it at uni and you're doing it on the street, getting jobs, getting paid less, or whatever you're doing, you're going a different route. We're going to meet at that crossroad, but I'm still learning, but I just can't do university. So I'll do it basically very vulnerably in a job that I could tell you some funny stories how I got jobs and I was way out of my depth. And some of them could have thought, what the fuck is this guy doing? But you know what I did? I'll tell you what I did, because I don't want to take up too much of your time and we want to get through the questions. But every job that I went into IT and elevated to the next level, I kept pulling out a notebook and a pen and I wrote fucking everything down. And then I'd go home and read it. So I created my own studies. So because I just couldn't go in and pretend the guy showed me. I said, what did you type? Where did you press enter? At what time did you do it? When did the error come up? What does this error mean? And I'd write the examples. What does that error mean? And I'd write it. But fuck, that was about 12 months of writing. And then I kept the book with me. I'd just go to work and I'd be holding a fucking notebook because I was afraid to not be experienced. And that's what I think people, haven't got their pen and papers out, aren't sitting with you possibly, or anybody in the industry, and maybe writing some notes and getting better at it. And I guess, I write a handwritten script. I'm good with pen and paper. I'm not going to come on this podcast with you and try to act like I know something or know you. I don't. But, like I said to you, I feel safe knowing I've written something here. Because then I feel like, I've educated myself about you, and so we can have a conversation over it. You know what I mean? So I think, it's interesting how we approach our industries, or how we approach life, or how we approach people, or how we want to be good at this career or whatever we want to do. But like you said, this sport does open up to many things, but so does the word entrepreneur, so does the word businessman, so does so many things. I mean, you just got to...
Yeah, I've been biting my tongue with your comment about the entrepreneur thing. You're not, personal trainers aren't entrepreneurs, but too many of them fucking call themselves
That's
that.
What I'm saying.
Like an entrepreneur, this is what you said before, right? So like, if you solely bought property, sold property, and kind of did that as your bread and butter, you could say that you're a property developer to a degree, or 100%. A property flipper, or whatever it may be. You build a skill set there. An entrepreneur is somebody who has the capabilities to build and sell businesses repeatedly. That's their skill set. So if you're a personal trainer who also sells t-shirts, and also, sell something, that's not, you don't own multiple businesses. You own one, and it's your own brand,
Let me tell you, I think Richard Branson has over 300 businesses. So well done, Richard. Yeah. So, I don't even think he's got entrepreneur on there, but maybe he does, but he's entitled to it. Your rebounds have shortened. Please explain to me what rebounds means, what they were, and what they are. And is there a difference, say, at a pro level, or for beginners, or just competing levels? Like, what's a rebound?
Yeah, so this particular conversation was centered around the post-competition phase, whereby, there's a period of recovering health metrics after a comp, because you've dieted hard, you've lost too much body fat to be healthy, you've taken drugs, there's some things that need fixed. The phase out of that being like the rebound phase of like your ability to then grow tissue really effectively after a competition stage. Mine used to be a little bit longer in that I would, consider like, how do I get the most out of this person for the longest amount of time with the least amount of detriment? And they would be like usually somewhere between 3 and 6 months, depending on the person's next goal. Now they're usually a little bit shorter, primarily because I find the motivation to like really dig in and grow post-comp is super high. But if we don't push it too far to the point that the person then accumulates a little too much body fat, there's just less work required later on in their sort of their growth season to then pull body fat off again. So, there's a shorter period for like recovering health post-comp than what I used to do by about 2 to 4 weeks. Then there's a shorter growth period than what I used to do by anywhere between 4 to 12 weeks, so that I can do more of them repeatedly back to back in a high motivated state, as opposed to like sometimes when you get to the back end of a growth phase, it can get a little bit tiresome and difficult, and you have more bottlenecks is the sort of terminology that you'll hear referred to quite a lot, and that eventually things just get stuck at the top, but for multiple reasons. Is it different between a pro and an amateur? More than likely, an amateur usually has time on their side.
Okay.
In that, they might be competing for the next 5 to 10 years or 5 years to become a pro if that's their goal. And I think competing once every 18 to 24 months for an amateur is probably a smart choice. It doesn't interfere with your life too much that way. Plenty of time to grow. You don't have to push the boundaries as much in regards to drugs and food and body weight. I think pros, though, have a limited time to be a pro, so they should try and compete more frequently. And they also need to stay a little bit more relevant in the pro divisions as well. So competing once every 12 months is probably necessary versus once every 18 to 24 months. So the growth phases for them sometimes need to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit shorter, because then they need to be back into the dieting phases too. So there certainly is a slightly different setup between pros and amateurs.
Yeah, I thought I'd ask that because I know some people are up there competing and they're not pros yet. Maybe there's a little bit of rebound, but you've explained it well here. When I see a work ethic... When I see work ethic create success in places or the physique shown on Spade, despite the fact that the approach may not have been considered to be the best practice, you get excited. So in other words, you're saying, well, correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying that
this for me is...
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
When I see somebody have success on stage,
yes,
in a scenario whereby I would deem that the principles used to get them there haven't been so, I don't like to use the word optimal, but as optimal as what we'd expect.
Ideal?
In that they've, dieted through poor strategies, they've done too much output, they've, not taken breaks, they've taken too many drugs, et cetera, et cetera. They've done all the things that may be perceivably considered wrong, but they still look incredible. Then I'm like, this person's got a really good work ethic. And one of the things that is 100% necessary for a bodybuilder to do well is to have the capabilities to tolerate stress, tolerate difficulty, and to work despite the fact that you may not feel like it. And I mean physically and mentally. Wow. So whenever I see somebody succeed in those environments, and I know that I can put them in an environment that is far more conducive to positive results, usually the result is exponentially greater than even they would expect. And, to put this in some arbitrary numbers, usually you might see somebody gain 1 or 2 kilos on stage in a competition season from season to season. When I see individuals that are like that, 9 times out of 10, they're in the 4 and 5 and 6 kilogram gain when they then eventually switch over to an approach like we take at Flex that I deem to be better. And I see it happen all the time, all the time.
Yeah, because so what excites you is you possibly didn't think. You're surprised that you're surprised by the human capability. Is that what you're trying to say? That individual with everything that was adverse, or maybe the journey towards it at the adversity, it could be even. Let's just say, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying ideal place of rest, ideal finances, ideal everything. Nothing's ideal, but this person's turned up and just put on a show that excites you. It just wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like they've been successful despite the approach,
Yeah, that's
as
what I
opposed to
mean.
because of the approach.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I put up a story the other day saying, you know, there are individuals out there that have the genetic capabilities to be pros and they act like pros, and they'll probably become them. There are other individuals who say they want to be pros, but they don't act like they will be. And then there are other individuals who will probably never be pros because they don't have the genetic capabilities, but they act like they would be, and they do exceptionally well for themselves, but they'll just never ever get the final carrot. Like, don't be the second person, because I hate a person who talks a lot of shit but doesn't walk as much as they talk. And so in this instance, it's inverted. We've got the individual who is doing absolutely everything wrong, but their work ethic is so fucking high that they're still successful despite the fact that that sucks. All right, cool. Work ethic is one of the things that I know you absolutely need to be a successful bodybuilder. You have to be able to tolerate stress. You have to be able to withstand difficult moments. You have to, like, essentially perform at your best in an environment that is set up to be your worst, nutritionally, sleep-wise, and all the rest of it. So if I can harness someone's capabilities just to work hard and then make them work more efficiently, that to me is like dangling a carrot in front of my face. You know?
You did use that in the podcast. I think you were mentioning that in one of your podcasts with an athlete, and your wife was there at the same time. I think you mentioned that. Yeah, it was. When did bodybuilding capture your attention? When did we're talking about actual weights, bodybuilding, resistance training, power, whatever it was? When did that capture your attention?
Fully, probably. I mean, I'm going back a while now. It'd be around about 15 years ago. I was probably like 21 or 22. I'd come out of uni at around about 21, 22. I had done the strength and conditioning thing. I always thought I would get into that performance space.
Yep.
At the time, I took a job up at GNC selling supplements, and against, you know, like, your environment makes a big difference. I ended up becoming, I was a store worker of a manager who was an Australian IFBB title winner in the under 80s. So I was exposed to him and his level of detail, which was high.
Yep.
He was one of those guys that was wanting to be a pro and acted like a pro 24/7.
Oh, lovely.
Very, very good bodybuilder. And so I just started lifting a little bit more. At the time that I was going to the Broncos, I was coming off the back end of being a soccer player, and I thought, you know, they're not going to take a 78 kilo wringing wet soccer player seriously in strength and conditioning, so I better try and put on some size. So I quit amateur soccer and just started lifting in my garage at the time, and then went into the GNC, and it kind of just all snowballed, man, to be honest. Like, I took a greater interest in self-education around nutrition. I was exposed to bodybuilding. I was then training specifically in weight training, and then it just got more and more and more. And then my competitive nature of, you know, I'm doing this training now because I enjoy it, but like, what is the end result, or what is the purpose of it? When I'd met my now wife at that time, I was discussing that maybe I'll consider competing. I think I might be okay at doing this now. Like, maybe I've spent enough time training. And she was just like, she's a rip the Band-Aid off kind of person. She just fucking do it, mate.
Wow. So
like,
don't.
She was like, don't talk about it, just do it. And I was like, all right, I'll do a comp. So then, like 24 weeks later or something, I competed for the first time.
You're quite lucky, because I always say to people, you can, like, I'm not here to bag my ex. It's not about, I don't have a problem. It's, you know, I was, not we're here for a counselling session. I was with her for 22 years. And to be honest, I'm very disappointed it never worked out, because actually that's what I wanted to really work out. That's all my intention was, to be with one person forever. It never worked out. But I remember once she said to me, you just want people to believe in you. And I said, listen, I already believe in myself, but what a bonus it would be if they did believe in me. I mean, you tell me the otherwise. So you're telling me I shouldn't want people to believe in me. That's like, her argument was, you don't need people to believe in you. And I said, no, why can't I have that too? Like, you tell me why I shouldn't have people believing in me. And she was dumbfounded. She just wanted me to agree, all you need to do is believe in yourself. I said, I fucking got that. What I want is someone to believe in me. And when you tell me how your wife said, or at the time, whatever she was, but what I'm saying is, go do it. I mean, that's what we need sometimes. Do you get what I mean? Like, you know you can do it, but now she's gone, you go do it. So that's compounded on you, and you think, oh, okay, I've got a team. I'll go and compete. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially in bodybuilding, because it's going to affect the relationship. That's for sure. You know,
most definitely.
Like if they're not into you doing it, you got a problem to begin with. So
yeah, what do you think the problem is? What's say testing on the relationship? You reckon? I mean, I know what, but I have not competed, so I don't know those depths.
I mean, you'll never really know what you become as a person until you're essentially starved and overtrained and underslept, and you know, if there's hormones involved, changing who you are chemically to a degree.
Wow.
You just won't know how you respond to that, right? So, and then there's the isolation of the fact that, you know, you start to do a lot less socially with friends and family. You start to lose a lot of your energy, so your personality will shift. So the person needs to, who's on the other side of it, they also get no, other than seeing you succeed potentially, but they get no gratification out of seeing you just become more and more of a skeleton and more reserved and more snappy, and they get all of the negatives for none of the wins. Whereas, you know, like even for me, that the validation is that I can succeed at this, is I'm getting this like constant reassurance, not only in my own behaviors that I'm doing what I need to do in order to achieve the result, but it's also likely the case that you're getting external validation if you're half decent online from people saying you look fucking awesome. So, you know, you've got this individual who's like just centered in on their own personal outcome that they're trying to achieve, and they're completely forgetting the person who's there trying to support them. So it could be very problematic, and then there's a reduction in affection for a lot of couples. There's a whole host of things that can make a relationship completely crumble.
You think that's why Seaborn was so successful? He just had a gem beside him. She just, I don't know, just had the right partner.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, she knew the industry. She competed herself. She knew what to expect. He came from a family who also had competitors. So that maybe the transition from pre-bodybuilding life into bodybuilding life was a smooth one.
Well, his sister competed, I think, too, and his brother-in-law competed, and then his wife competed. I mean, the circle was perfect, don't you think?
I mean, hindsight, there's some hindsight bias here, maybe, to suggest that it is a perfect circle, because it could have also gone the other way.
Yeah, it
could have been that they were all just far too invested and sat in their own bubble, that they just became, you know, bodybuilding morons. Who knows?
Oh, okay.
Like you don't really know. Like, hindsight's 20/20, and in this instance, there's hindsight bias to say that's successful, therefore it must have been a good environment. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know, and I've seen people that have grown up in bodybuilding households that have been the opposite. You know, they're socially recluse. They have no concept of like life outside of bodybuilding. They don't have very good balance whatsoever. They lose relationships all the time, and like they've maybe come up in a similar family environment. So the dynamics are too difficult to judge, I guess.
No, well, I've just, like I said, when you told me how your wife pulled the Band-Aid off, sent you on. I mean, I just know that. I just know that helps. I just think anything helps. I mean, I was seeing a psychologist. I mean, I have seen a psychologist for like 10 years. And I said to her once, I said, what is it about these boxers, these guys that fight? They've won the fight and they haven't even turned up to the ring. Like, how do they stay that focused, and they know it's a 50-50 chance, but the belt's theirs. They're knocking the guy out in third round, whatever it is. And she said to me, it's their team. As soon as he doubts himself in the morning, the team jumps in and brings him back up. Like, he's just back up. He's just back up. Like, he will never come down, because when he comes down, the team brings him back, like, straight up. Like, but on your own, yeah, it's pretty tough. You're on top, and then you put yourself down, you turn around, there's nobody there. But if you've got somebody that is there that says, no, you're the champ. You think I'm the champ? You're the champ. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm sure, like, the guy you're about to box has a tattooed face. He's been shot in the shoulder and he punches other athletes out, and you're going to beat this guy. I mean, it takes a team to make you believe you can fucking beat that guy. Do you know what I mean? So it takes...
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting sport.
Yeah, so when my psychologist told me, because I was mesmerized by the the boxers themselves, the way they speak to each other. No sport does that. You know, you speak to a rugby league player, oh, look, I hope we play well today. We're going to come together as a team. You know, the other team's pretty good. I'm sure they'll come up, showed up, and no, boxers just say one thing: I'm going to hit him in the jaw. I'm going to knock him out. But every other sport is a humble, like, oh, you know, he might turn up, and rugby league and AFL and cricket and this and that and tennis, but not when it comes to combat sport. No, he's gone. He's finished. I'm going to break him. And the guy on the other end is like an assassin, and you're like, but you're just conditioned, and your team's conditioning you. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm looking for someone like that, Dean. Dean, I need someone, Dean.
I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy.
You are, Dean. You are, Dean. I'm sure you'd tell me I can knock him out if I asked you. I'm sure. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe when you get to know me better. Where did you grow up, mate? Just quickly, we'll get through this bit.
Mate, I was born in a little country town about 3 hours west of Brisbane called Dalby.
Right.
I was there till I was 6. And then my old man went out there for a finance job and supposed to be there for 12 months, I think, and stayed for 6 years. And then I grew up all my like sort of younger life in Brisbane.
Okay. And you played soccer, right? From the age of 4 to 22, you played at state and national level. Can you just elaborate a little bit further? And you also played in the UK for 2 years, correct? 16 and 17.
I toured the UK on some Australian stuff, and I went over to the UK to try and get a semi-professional contract in the youth divisions at the time. When I was 16, I quit year 12 to go over there and pursue it full time. But prior to that, yeah, man, I played soccer from the age of 4 in the under 6s in Dalby and through to 22 without a break. I would play indoor for one season, outdoor for the next season, indoor for one season, outdoor for the next season. At a state level for outdoor, and representative then at like the QAS, and then nationally I was chosen in the indoor teams. That was my whole life, man. All I ever cared about was playing football. That's all I really ever wanted to do. And it wasn't until I suppose I didn't get the contract that I was looking for, because I didn't go back to the UK due to injuries. And then playing in the sort of semi-professional league in Australia, the one below at the time, before the one now, the A-League kicked off. It was prior to that. I just realised that my time was come at 22, that I wasn't going to pursue the European football career that I wanted. So I just shifted gears into something else.
What was your position?
Mainly right midfielder.
Yeah,
that was my primary position. Yeah.
Yeah, I played. I could play anywhere in the backs, but I played left or right wing. I could not play in the centre. I couldn't play centre midfield. I couldn't play striker. I progressed from the back line to playing on the wing because I like setting up goals, and I wouldn't mind a goal or two, but I wasn't interested in scoring too much. I was just interested in getting the ball in the middle there and just taking out players, a few slide tackles. But did you know that, you probably don't know this, but anyway, you know Marco from Papa Macros played in Italy, soccer? I thought I'd let you know.
No, I didn't know.
I'll let you know that. There you go. And if you ever see Marco, maybe you can talk about soccer one day. There you go.
Yeah. It's been a long time now, man. It was one of those things where I literally stopped playing and then kind of just completely removed myself from it.
Well,
went straight into the next one.
Well, fuck, you played soccer, man. You were good at it. And I'm just going to read here just reading the questions. Okay, so you went to England. You were going to leave school. It was kind of like the pointy end where it was either now or never. Is that correct?
Yeah, essentially, man. And then I quit school, was training full time, and got a few little niggles and injuries, and then never went back.
Yeah. So tell me, you played cricket. Obviously, you're a sporty guy, and I think people like you. Correct me if I'm wrong. Could you play every sport? Could you play rugby league?
Possibly. My old man was a rugby league man. I'm sure I would have played on the wing or something like that. Yeah. I mean, I actually used to play soccer with a guy named Daniel Camp. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He used to play for the Broncos.
All right. Yeah.
He was a winger, and he was a very fast, very, very fast guy in Australian soccer. But just didn't quite have the finesse. And then as maybe like an 18-year-old or something like that, he went and played rugby league for like 1 or 2 seasons. And because he was so quick, he kept scoring goals on the wing, and he got picked up by the Broncos after having played rugby league for maybe a year or 2. And then ended up becoming quite a successful rugby league player for the Broncos.
I find, like I said, seeing your story in soccer, the fact you played cricket. Sorry, we've got my dogs in here. We'll move a few things out. Girls, I'm on a podcast, will you? Just go. You got dogs?
I had one, but not while we travel, yeah.
No, of course not. We're going to talk about your tattoo. But you played cricket and you held a triple jump record for years. Where was the record at? Who had the record? What was the record?
I mean, I don't even remember what year I was in, but maybe like year 11 or something like that. It was in the division of my private all boys school.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I think it's called the AIC or A something like that. Anyway, yeah, it was a triple jump record that I held for. I remember my little brother was at the school for 5 years and was still there. And then I'd been told by somebody randomly out of nowhere that it got beaten, but it's not that impressive. It was a bit random.
But were you a sporty kid? Besides seeing like you were academic, were you a sporty kid? Because I'm going to read between the lines. Like, I got a cousin, he could do any sport, cricket, soccer, rugby league. Once you're a sporty person, it's like you just understand how to control the ball, you know, how the play goes. It's just something innate. Is that in you? Sports in you like that? Maybe not now, I mean,
yeah.
But back then, yeah?
No, for sure, man. That's what I was saying. Like, I started kicking a ball and playing soccer at the age of 4. And I don't know any different. I've always played sport. I'm not very good at tennis, I can tell you that. Terrible at tennis. I'm sure there's some things I'm absolutely terrible at.
Well, then I'm going to ask you, what do you think stopped you completely taking on a full-time career? Because something would have stopped you. Because I think some people that I know that haven't gone any further was that, and it's a bit ironic that I say it in a way of support. Some of them didn't go that next level because it was the element of support, meaning they just needed that extra nudge and they didn't get it and they didn't go any further. You know, some parents, some dads or some families just get you to the next stage. Some people need it, some people don't. What do you think stopped you going that little bit further?
I mean, honestly, I think I've just got a very a good ability of recognizing the reality of what the potential for success is.
Oh, okay.
If football at the time, success was going to happen between the ages of 14 and 20.
Oh, yes.
If you were talking about making a professional career out of it. By that stage, I'd recognized that I was getting on. I wasn't interested in playing in the A League. That wasn't the level of football that I wanted to play in. So I knew that, well, I can either continue to pursue this because it's enjoyable or I can pursue something else. And I found most enjoyment in football out of being successful at it, not necessarily at the game itself. Like, enjoyment to me is being successful. So, and then bodybuilding is the same. I think I actually could have been a very, very good bodybuilder had I started earlier.
Okay.
But the recognition was that at this point in time in my life, this is not the endeavor to take on at this time. Could it still be successful as an older person? Sure. But I also really, really like coaching.
How old are you? How old are you?
37.
Oh, Jesus, you're still so young. Quite mature. And I've got to ask this question before I'll go over the sprinting, and then we'll go over the body a bit, get towards the end of this. What is genetics? I know, I kind of know genetics. How do you know you got genetics? That's what I want to know. Like, how does someone know? How do you know? How do you know? Because some of the photos I've seen of the Olympians, they were skinny little runts in Africa. Like, I don't know. How do you know genetics? I'm confused. So I'm going to ask you, genetics. Talk to me about genetics.
Well, I mean, you don't, whether or not you have the genetic potential to be elite. Bodybuilding is a bit different because you can chemically alter your genetic predisposition to be successful. And you don't know what even your response to drugs is going to be until you use them. There are individuals who may start out hypermuscular naturally and then actually not respond very well to drugs in a positive manner.
Okay.
And then there are individuals who may look like they've got no capabilities whatsoever, and then they respond very, very well.
Yep.
But how do you know? I mean, you don't really. I guess the only way you can probably try and validate whether or not you think that you may have what it takes in any kind of sport is to lean on people that have at least seen enough individuals be either successful and or not successful to give you like a relative percentage of expectation around what is the likelihood of success. But there's always going to be anomalies, and I think sometimes people focus a little bit too much on the anomalies as validation for like what is capable or what you're capable of in bodybuilding. Like if you were to look at Nick Walker when he was an amateur, I don't think you would ever have considered him having the genetic capabilities to achieve what he has achieved.
That's what I'm saying.
In bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But he's still an anomaly, you know, whereas I think if you like looked at like the first 5 years of Samson's training, the first 5 years of Phil Heath's training, the first 5 years of any of the elite guys, or you even speak to some of the elite guys or hear stories of them, like a William Bonac who speaks to people and says like, just watch how fast I respond. They're more common than the Nick Walkers. So like maybe don't lean on the anomalies as validation as of evidence, but rather recognize that they're outside the bell curve. And you know, there are some people that are just made to do things or you know, are genetically set up or have a higher affinity to be successful. But in a subjective sport like bodybuilding, it becomes even more gray because shape matters and muscle insertion matters and you know, skin texture matters and all of these things matter. So it's a little bit more difficult again. But I think it's more of a genetic lottery in bodybuilding than it is even in a performance sport. I think you can work your performance up to a place of being like pretty good if you're willing to put it in. To say something that's more objective like football, or even doing something like shooting or you know, darts or something, like repetition is the name of the game in those things in regards to skill acquisition.
Yeah, I still try. I mean, I think I understand genetics, but I don't know if someone's got big calves, I should think they've got good genetics because they've got big calves, or they've got big forearms and I should think they've got good genetics. But I guess maybe you can't fake it once you reach the top, no matter, like, maybe unless you're gifted and the diets and the training and the gear and all works together perfectly and harmoniously, that I think that's when you know there's some gifts there. You know what I mean? I think because you could be the biggest guy in Australia, you can be the biggest guy in your country or whatever it is, but once you start, it depends what your lineup you had at the time. It depends how you're progressing through, but then I guess you just can't hide from the top. The top skins the cream right off, you know, and I guess that's how it goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just a few more questions. One, tell me about your personal nutritional interests. How do you, I think you did a competition or you wanted to compete once with going against the grain of what diet was or something like that. Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, my very, very first competition I did incredibly flexibly, let's just say, because at the time it was more common to see individuals say that it was impossible to eat varying types of foods and not to eat the traditional bodybuilding diet of, you know, rice and chicken and some predetermined vegetables that were classified as being okay. Like, you know, you could eat broccoli, but for some reason carrot or corn was considered to be taboo because they had more carbohydrates or whatever it may be. Or that you couldn't eat ice cream and still get shredded, or you couldn't eat bread and still get shredded. So there's all of these like, like black and white expectations around what nutrition had to be in order for it to be successful in bodybuilding. So in my first competition, I dieted as flexibly as you possibly could. I rewrote my diet every day. I ate something different every day. I made different foods all the time. Admittedly, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't recommend doing it again because I became far too food focused. In that I was always focusing on what I could eat, what else could I have, what else could I make, and it was a bad environment for managing hunger and all the rest of it. However, I did it to prove the point that it was possible, and it certainly was.
And what's your view now on food competing?
I still think you could do it flexibly. I mean, if you were to take away the difficulty of being that flexible, you can certainly do it, and there's people that do it very well. I think any food is on the table to be used within a nutrition plan. Absolutely any food, and to still get lean. The question is just whether or not it is the right choice for the right person at the right time. Could you, if you wanted to, consume 4 tablespoons of table sugar before you train because it makes you feel good, and you're in a contest prep 4 weeks out? Absolutely, you can.
Yep.
But if you also then come back to me and say, but I'm really, really hungry, and I'm giving up all of my carbohydrates to table sugar, not that anyone would do this, this is an extreme example, then I would say, like, okay, taking away from the fact that it provides you the same amount of energy as potato or rice or whatever it may be, like what other characteristics of this food are beneficial or potentially not beneficial for you? So like maybe you might choose potato because it's more voluminous, you feel fuller, it has fiber, it slows down digestion. So like the result being fat loss is still going to be the same, essentially. The difference is going to be how difficult it is to sustain that dietary practice that you're currently involved in. So I think having the mental freedom to understand that flexibility is an option is incredibly beneficial in a contest prep. But I think like overusing flexibility in application can be problematic, more so from an appetite management perspective and the associated things with those approaches.
Okay. 3 more things, then we'll go to the body, we'll finish up. So 11.5, 100-meter sprint. Is that fast?
I mean, relative to Usain Bolt, no, it's slow as fuck.
What's Usain Bolt's time? Just quickly, I just sort of ask.
I want to say 9.67 or 9.65, something like that. If you're an elite level sprinter and you can't sprint under 10 seconds, you're at the bottom of the pack of the elites, which is pretty crazy. I think back in the day that the elite guys in like high school were running at around about 10.9.
I was thinking that was...
So, you'd still be like nearly a second behind them, which is going to be about 10 meters. Like it's still a significant loss. And then Usain's 20 meters in front. So like relative on a track, it's very, very fast compared to not very fast at all. But it was sufficiently fast for the time.
I did sprinting in my early 30s. A sprint coach called Roger Fabry. He's in Sydney. He does some of the NRL players and he does a few people overseas. He was just doing it for the fun of it at the time because he was establishing his name. But I have to say, I guess I wasn't competing. I was just bodybuilding, right? But when I was combining sprinting with bodybuilding, fuck, I tell you what, man, what a physique that was. It was incredible. The reason being is he would go, all right, we're doing a 300-meter sprint, right? It's a 300-meter sprint. So we do 300. And he'd go, I don't know, look, I'm going to guess a time, so I apologize about anybody that tells me that's too slow or too quick. But he'd go to me, oh, that's 45.7. And I go, okay. He goes, beat it. And you'd come in at 45.8 and you'd be dirty. You go, 0.8, my God. And you go again. And you go again. And then that stopwatch was the bit that drove me insane. It was just, and what I found with sprinting was, I was ripped. I was so muscular. It was incredible. It was a really fun time. Like I did it for a couple of years, but it was just, I just didn't need anything else other than bodybuilding, which I did, which I enjoyed lying on the bench and I enjoyed squatting and doing all the stuff that I did. But when I used to sprint, wow, what a body that ended up having. You know, that was incredible.
Yeah, there's a famous video of Kevin LeBron still trying to run 100, which is hilarious, but.
I can imagine. You've got 3 tattoos, right? So let everybody know. You've got a Reuben sandwich, and that is in the memory of your dog, Reuben. Is that right? What kind of dog was it?
He was an English Staffy.
I've got an American Staffy.
Her
name's Roxy. She's the one you can hear a little bit. Roxy, her name is.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Staffies. They're people dogs, which I love. And yeah, his name is Reuben, so I got a Reuben sandwich. That was not long after my last comp, or the comp that I did in Australia, so like 2018-ish. And then I got French fries tattooed on my ring finger as a bit of a laugh. My wife's favorite food.
Yeah. Well, tell me about that one. And is that the secret to love? Getting the French fry tattooed around your finger?
Sure. I mean, no. I mean, that's, it was more of us. I broke my wedding ring at the gym, and then I'm not particularly fond of getting sentimental tattoos that like would be names or anything like that. But I thought this was just a bit of a fun joke, and that, like, even if we weren't together, however many years from now, it'd still be a funny thing to look at a French set of French fries on my finger. So I got them just as a fun tattoo.
No, that's unique. And what's the third one? The third one I don't know. What's the third one?
The third one's just a compass. For people that can see, it's just on the back of my hand. I got it when we were in Mexico. Symbolically, it was kind of nice. We sort of just choose wherever we live on the map, and we kind of venture around, and life can take us wherever we so choose it. So it was relevant to my thoughts at the time of sort of being free to travel wherever I see fit. And then we'll see where the next one is.
Well, and you're colorblind.
Yes.
I just want to know, do you see black and white, or you can see color? Like, I don't understand. What's colorblind mean? Or is it just that? You're colorblind.
Yeah, there's varying difficulties to see different types of colors in the presence of others, or to be able to even just see the shades of certain colors. So I'm classified as red-brown colorblind.
Right.
Which means, like, if there's certain reds within certain browns or browns within reds, I can't really see them.
Yeah.
But I also still have some difficulty with things like fluorescent green and yellow. Unless they're together, I can't really tell which one's which. But if they're together, I can. So I said to you, like, as a bit of a joke, and it's still true. I'm still very uncertain as to when I choose bananas, if they're ripe or not.
I did find that funny. I did have fun.
So I usually go for bananas that have a few more black spots on them that smell very ripe, and I'm like, that's probably a safe bet.
Well, I was trying to understand what colorblind would mean, but I guess, I mean, I thought to myself, man, he must just look at black and white every day. Everything's grey and black and white. So I don't know, but I guess there's the different variants in colours.
Hi, Yvonne here. I'm thrilled to be working with Steve from Muscle Talks. Please go to rockcreek.com.au and join in on the collaboration with Steve, and use your Muscle Talks 10 discount code to buy any products that you'd like. Well,
can we go over the body? We usually finish off with going over the body. I'll just say a body part. If you can tell us an exercise, sets and reps. It's not necessarily three. It's just, I'll give you an example. It's like if I said bicep, I'll say preacher curls, 3 sets of, I guess, maybe 8, which I'm emphasizing go heavy kind of thing. But it's just something very simple for people. Maybe at the end would go, oh my God, he's giving away a little bit of information here. So we'll start with traps. Do we train traps?
Do we train them?
Yeah, we'll train. How? Well, both. Do we train them? How? It doesn't really matter. Like, it's kind of like, because many bodybuilders go, don't train them. So we stick with he doesn't train them. But you might want to say, well, I don't train them, but I'll give you a tip on them. I don't know. Like, yeah.
I wouldn't isolate their training, in that I don't think they're very good being trained in specific scapular elevation. But rather they're better at preventing scapular depression, which means that you would have to do like isometric based holds under tremendous amounts of weight and stopping your shoulders from going in a downwards direction. So the exercise for that would be, for example, like a farmer's carry or a deadlift. But like, I'm not gonna ever program farmer's carries for a bodybuilder because they're too fatiguing.
They are too fatiguing. You're not wrong. What about delts? Let's go with side delts. What's a great side delt exercise?
I would go for either a behind the back or a crossbody lateral raise on a cable machine at hand height and in the repetition range of somewhere between 10 and 15.
Sets?
Anywhere from 2 to 10.
Jesus Christ. We'll just post that and we'll get 300,000 views, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of... Then you want to know how they're going to come for us? That comment there, buddy. If you want us to go wild, we'll put that one up there and you watch everybody debate us for about the next 6 months. What about front delts?
Unlikely, unnecessary to be trained by most individuals, but a slightly less than vertical dumbbell press.
Okay. Sets and reps?
2 sets, 6 to 12 reps.
Okay. Rear delts?
Chest supported, cable, rear delt fly, 2 sets, 10 to 15 reps.
Okay. Back? Anything to do with the laterals? Just one exercise, sets and reps?
One exercise only.
Well, if you had to
Smith
choose...
machine dead stop.
Sorry, Smith machine, yeah?
Yeah. Smith machine dead stop row. So rowing from a dead stop, Smith machine. And I mean, if we only had to choose one exercise, I'd probably say somewhere in the 2 to 4 set range for somewhere between 6 and 12 reps.
Bent over rows, is that what you're saying?
From a dead stop, yeah.
From a dead stop, yeah. Wow, yeah. They're good ones. Chest. Doesn't matter where, upper, lower, middle, whatever, just a chest exercise.
A seated converging press of some description. Not because the converging I think is important, but rather the divergence of your hands on the eccentric is important for getting maximum pec stretch. Slightly inclined, and I would go for anywhere in the vicinity of 2 to 6 sets for 8 to 15 reps.
Oh, 8, okay. 8 to 15. Bicep.
Lengthened cable unilateral bicep curl, standing.
Sets and reps.
2 by 8 to 15.
Okay. Tricep.
Probably like a cross-body unilateral tricep extension cable. And it would be anywhere between 2 and 4 sets for somewhere between 8 and 12 reps.
Okay. I'm just going to bring this up. It's definitely an 80s maybe. And I actually saw a few people recently training, a few Olympians training them. The forearm.
Unnecessary. Waste of time.
Waste of time, unnecessary. Okay. Well, I saw some people looking at some forearm machines. So maybe I'll tell them don't buy them.
I think unless you do absolutely no dumbbell or barbell work that requires you to hang on to something that's heavy, then you could probably argue for them. But the load that you're using to do extension and flexion of the wrist is so insignificant compared to what you'll hold. I think it's pointless. Okay.
Quads.
Any squat pattern that allows you to get your knees as flexed as possible. More than likely going to be something like a hack squat. 2 sets, 8 to 12 reps.
Hammies.
Seated hamstring curl.
Yep.
10 to 15 reps, 2 to 4 sets.
Calves.
Anything with somewhat of a soft knee that allows you to get your calves under a tremendous amount of stretch would be the best choice. Could be something like a leg press, could be something standing. It would depend. Probably more like a leg press or a seated press than standing, because I think the limiting factor on the spine is probably going to inhibit your capacity to load them properly. And I would say if you would legitimately want to grow them, you're going to need 6 to 8 sets and probably anywhere between 8 and 15 reps. You're going to need a lot more than what you think.
Wow, I'm going to do that. I've just kind of heard like Cutler say he was talking about the stretch, holding down low longer, and also he said that that would be his first exercise when he walked in the gym. If it was part of the routine, calves were done first, because at the end you just want to walk out. So he would hit calves so if it was happened to be that he's doing quads with calves, he starts his routine with calves because he just doesn't want to finish without paying so much attention to them. It's funny, I went to a friend's gym, Metroflex. I just went to have to check it out here at the Sutherland Shire, and he's got a donkey press. Remember the good old bend over donkey press? Oh my God. Tell you what, that feels amazing. That was quite a contraption. I loved it. Oh, you know what? It felt unreal to put the elbows on there and then just lift, from that bend over position. I don't know. There was something about the donkey press I haven't seen in gyms for a while, so it was quite good to feel.
Yeah. No, they're not very common, but they are very good in regards to how they're loaded. That's for sure.
No, it was a great feeling. All right, tibialis. No,
I don't.
Okay, that's okay. And glutes.
45-degree hip extension. Or any squat pattern, to be fair. And the repetition for that one, it could be anywhere between 6 and probably 15, 6 and 12, 2 to 4 sets.
Okay. Well, Dean, where can we find you? Well, people listening to this podcast all around the world, where can they find you?
Yeah, just Instagram's the best place, flex_success. That was where the business page is. You'll find myself and all of our coaches, and that's where all that information is too in regards to applying for coaching as well as products that we sell.
Wonderful. Mate, I was just going to check if Chris, have you done the thumbnails? Yeah, because Chris will make sure we got some film. I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate your time and your patience. I apologise about my dogs maybe having a bit of a bark around, but we've done two podcasts that I had to bring them back. I had to bring them in. They had to come and join us in the office. I just wanted to say thank you so much, mate.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for having me on.